Well, here we go. Welcome to the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. This show is just for woodshop owners like cabinet makers, architecture mill workers, and closet companies. Those of you who are interested in the business of the woodshop business. Now, today, I'm going to give you the inside scoop. I want to show you how the simple systems work for bringing on people in your company. We've got a very special guest today, somebody who you've heard on the show before, an HR expert, a recruiting expert. Her name is Suman Cherry, and she's been on the show before. Episode 177, she was with us here on the Cabinet Maker Profit System show, where we talked about how do I interview office positions for a contractor or a construction company. Now, you might wonder, well, how did you find Suman, by the way, and why has she already been on the show twice, or why is this her second time? It's actually her third time being on the show. I found her through one of her other clients who's also been on the show, and he's really, really big in the concrete industry. We'll leave that for another story. She was also on my other podcast, which is called Profit Toolbelt. Not sure if you guys know, but I host two different podcasts. Profit Toolbelt podcast, there's lots of renovators and home builders and GCs on that listen to that one. But I had her on there, episode 217, how to hire construction workers, people like project managers, foremen, and site supers, and how to beat the circle of dysfunction. But today, we're going to be talking about a case study, how I found a project manager for a wood shop. We've got the case study is going to be based on work we've done together in California, Louisiana, and Texas for different cabinet shops. So this episode's important if you want to learn about recruiting people, if you want to understand how others are recruiting people, the challenges that others are facing and how they overcame them, and just have a conversation to open up your mind to the possibilities that exist. Maybe it's time for you to get a PM. Maybe it's not time for you to get a PM. Maybe you need a second one. Maybe you need a third one. We have those conversations here all the time as well. Hey, listen, this show's about mindset, and I said mindset. And so you might think, well, this is the part where I do dad jokes. And why dad jokes and bad jokes and dad jokes with poor timing? Because that's how the only way I know how to tell jokes. But I thought today I would do some words of wisdom, because there's some wisdom that Suman and I talk about in today's show, the wisdom of leveraging people to grow the business that you want. And I thought, well, let's do some wisdom things today. And I want to get you thinking, and I want to get your mind open as you think about different things. And we go really wide around this topic and then come back around. So the first story is actually about an architecture mill worker who went to Burma, Myanmar. And he was out there, he was looking at the teak forests, trying to source some wood. And as you may know, they use elephants to harvest the wood out there and to process it. So a man is passing by a bunch of elephants. He stopped, and this mill worker stopped, and he's confused that these huge, huge, powerful creatures are being held by a small rope, and it's tied to their front leg. There's no chain, there's no cages. And it's obvious that the elephants could break away anytime, run to the forest, but they didn't. So he saw a trainer nearby and asked why these huge, majestic elephants just stood there and made no attempt to get away. The trainer said, well, when they're very young and a lot smaller, we use the same size rope to tie them. And at that age, it's really just enough to hold them. But as they grow up, they're conditioned to believe they can't get away. They believe the rope can still hold them now, so they never, ever try to break free. And of course, this man in our industry is absolutely amazed. The animals could break free at any time from their bonds, but because they believed they couldn't, they're stuck right there where they are. And so the question I want to ask you now is, how many of us are like those elephants? We go through life hanging on to the belief that we can't do something simply because we failed at it once before, or we think it's too hard, or we don't think it's going to work. Failure, in fact, is a part of learning. We should never give up struggling in life. And then I thought, okay, well, that's a pretty good story, and people are going to get a message from that. What about the struggle? What about every day doing the same thing? How do we break free of the patterns that we're in? And what happens if we don't break free of those patterns? And I remember that a very good friend of mine who used to actually be one of my business coaching franchisees, his name's Carlos Rosales. It's wonderful, one of the nicest guys, one of the wisest men I've ever met and had the pleasure of working with. He would talk about something called the precessionary caterpillars. I wonder if Carlos is listening, because he's gonna laugh and smile. He's such a great guy. There was a naturalist, a guy named Jean-Henri Fabre. He did an experiment with these animals. They're called processionary caterpillars. So these caterpillars feed on pine needles, and they move through the forest in these long processions, right? One caterpillar leads and the others follow. And what they do is they put their heads on top of the caterpillar in front of them. So each moves along, assuming that the lead caterpillar knows where he's going, right? So one experiment that this naturalist did was to entice the caterpillars onto the rim of a large flower pot, right? A circular flower pot. So we got them all connected. So each had its head on the rear end of the one in front, nice visual. And it's a circle. There's no beginning or no end, right? Now, instinct directed them to do what they needed to do. So they started moving. They went around and around the rim of the flower pot. Now, Fabre assumed, as a scientist, that at least one would eventually realize they were on a useless march in a never-ending circle, and somebody or one of the caterpillars would eventually break the circle. But through his observations, he was surprised that this living circle of caterpillars continued to just go around the rim in a mindless journey to nowhere for days and days. And they continued on for 7 days before starvation finally overcame them. And what was amazing was that they'd been so focused on following the caterpillar in front of them, that they neglected to see that in the center of the pot, Fabre, the scientist, had placed lots of food and water that could have saved their lives. Now, you got to think why those caterpillars didn't stop and feed and rest. And Fabre wondered the same thing and concluded this: they're following instinct, habit, custom, tradition, precedent, past experience, standard practice, or whatever you want to call it, but they were following it blindly, end quote. And so his final conclusion was that they mistook activity for accomplishment. They meant well, but got no place. And that's the end of the quote. What a great anecdote or story, the story of the processionary caterpillar. It shows us the importance of being able to help ourselves, our families, our businesses, people closest to us, including ourselves, the importance of changing direction and change focus when we need to. And it really shows us that activity is not the only answer. Again, this goes to working smarter versus working harder. It might be time for you to think about, well, how can I work a little bit smarter? And that's what I want you to hear today when Suman and I do our interview, right? Then that made me think of a very famous quote. One of my favorite authors, and you guys already know this, is an ancient Chinese general. His name is Sun Tzu. Great book. It's called The Art of War. Now, Sun Tzu lived in like 500 years before Christ, right? And here's his one of his military stratagems or military theories that have been repeated on and on throughout the ages by other military powers. This is the quote: victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Okay, let me repeat it one more time for you. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. And when I read that and I think about it and I contemplate it, it reminds me about the importance of planning. It reminds me about the importance of diligence and discipline and having accountability. I want to be a victorious warrior. I win first and then I go to war. So I think about things on paper. I write it out. I think about what might happen, what could happen, and I try to anticipate bottlenecks. Now, those of you who have heard past episodes where we've done live coaching, you've heard me do that when I'm working with somebody in a coaching meeting. We set a goal, and then right away we anticipate the bottlenecks. Why would we do that? Is that a negative thing? Are we just worried that the sky might fall on our heads? No. I want to set the goal. The goal might be we're going to implement this software in 6 weeks. That's the goal for the company. And then we're going to anticipate bottlenecks. I just did this with a cabinet shop the other day up in Montana. And one of the bottlenecks they anticipated was the space for the new person who was sitting there to not be ready. What a simple bottleneck for the person they just hired to not have space to sit in to do his job to help them implement the software. Isn't that crazy? And then what about the other things that could bottleneck your company from this thing happening? But it's important to put those all on paper, because once they're on paper, you own them, or I own them. And once I own them, I can manage them. And once I can manage them, I can control them, or I can mitigate them. They may never come up, but as soon as they do, I've got a plan, right? Preparing for the what if, even if it never happens, and it will in some way, shape, or form, something's going to come up. And then, of course, GSD, getting stuff done, right? And then we go back to knowing your numbers. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war. They win on paper. They think about the numbers. They think about the strategy. They think about the obstacles. They think about their assets. They think about their liabilities. Hopefully, they've got somebody to hold them accountable and to show them the way, somebody who's walked there before, a Sherpa, right? A guide who says, this is the way up the mountain or across the river. Do you have that? And if not, how do you get one? How do you get yourself to the next level? If you're a business who's at $1.5 million right now, and you've been $1.5 million for a couple of years, how do you get to be a 1.7, 1.9, or $3 million cabinet shop if you've never been there before? Wouldn't it make sense to take a guide or to have somebody with the perspective to show you how to get there? Show you how to get there. There's another Sun Tzu quote: "The general who wins a battle makes many calculations in his temple before the battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations." Not as sexy a quote, I'll grant you that. But what he's talking about here is know your numbers. Know your numbers. Today, Suman and I are going to be talking about finding a project manager for a cabinet shop. Do you know how much volume one project manager can do in your company? That becomes important, because if you suddenly have your time freed up because you've hired a project manager, and that project manager can efficiently and effectively produce for you installations and production of, let's say, $2 million of cabinetry a year. I'm using a residential example here. But you grow sales to 3.5, you might find yourself wondering why you're still busy. It's because you took on another $1.5 million in project management yourself. You see, there's a magic number, and knowing that magic number means you own that number. At some point, your current project manager is going to get maxed, and you've got to bring on somebody else, even though it costs you a bit of money. If we're on a growth plan, a growth path, we have confidence in our numbers. We've anticipated our bottlenecks. We know that we can hire that person a little bit early, knowing that we're going to get the returns in the end. And you, as the business owner, can move on to the business owner type activities. Maybe I should have gone with the jokes. Anyways, all of this comes down to wisdom. It comes down to brains, not brawn. It comes down to working smarter, not just harder. So let's get to the episode with Suman. By the way, you should connect with her on LinkedIn. Her name is Suman Cherry. So she's got a very unique first name. Suman is spelled Suman, and her last name is spelled cherry, like the fruit, Suman Cherry. And you can find her on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You should definitely connect with us there. As I like to say, LinkedIn is like it's Facebook for adults. But you can also, she's got a way for you to reach her afterwards if you want. I know many clients who've worked with her, and everybody's had great results. The other thing I want you to do is stay to the end of the show for a very specific training segment where I'm going to simplify and solve a common business problem. It'll be another quick case study from me about one of you, a listener out there. So maybe it's you. You never know. You might be famous on the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. I mean, the whole world listens to the show, don't they? So stay tuned for that. And listen, if you've got questions at any point, pull over, shoot me a text. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853. And just say, Dom, let's talk. And then you know what we'll do? We'll talk. All right, let's get to it. Suman Cherry, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here again for my third time.
Third time of all the shows across two
Yes.
shows. So this is number 4.
Oh, this is number 4 now?
I think so.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so number 4. I didn't even know.
Yeah. There's a reason you keep getting invited back. It's because you've got good stuff.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Now, I mean, some people don't know who you are, but today you and I are going to talk about something interesting, because since you and I have met, you've got some really cool case studies for how cabinet shops, millwork shops have found project managers.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody's going to be interested in hearing that. How do you find a good project manager? How do you find the right project manager?
I mean, they're so easy to find.
They're everywhere, right?
They're everywhere.
Yeah, the schools are churning them out.
Yes, everywhere.
They're lined up outside your door begging to apply.
Yes.
Yeah, no, they're not.
No, they're definitely not.
Hey, Suman, some people might not know who you are.
Okay.
Well, so can I ask who you are? So hold on.
Yes,
I got to ask it
I
this way. You know this already. I'm going to say, Suman Cherry, who the heck are you? And how is it that you come to be speaking to all these cabinet makers, architectural millworkers, and closet companies all over the world?
well, I am my name is Suman Cherry and I am a rock star recruiter, I guess. I've been in the I'm a recruiting expert. I have been in recruiting for about 20 plus years. And I have worked in lots of different industries. I started off in medical and I moved into oil and gas. And over the last 7, 8 years, I've been focused a lot in construction. About, I guess we're going on 4 years ago, I think 4 years now, I
Yeah.
started a new way of recruiting. It started off with just doing some consulting, contracting work with some clients.
Right.
And I think we talked about this.
One
And
of that client actually ended up being a guest on this podcast.
yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that model of moving it from the traditional contingent model, which is most people are familiar with, where you don't pay anything up front and then you pay for a 20 to 25% placement fee based on the first year's salary, which has kind of been the standard and norm
It's the standard everywhere. And by the
everywhere.
way, that's where people lock up. They're like, why would I hire a recruiter?
Right.
You want me to pay 25% of their first year salary? So on $100,000 position, because I don't want to count on my fingers while I'm doing this, that's 25 grand. And
Yeah.
people are like, that's insane. To
Right.
which my answer is, how much is your time worth, my friend?
Right.
You may have forgotten what we're trying to do here, which is run a business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the model kind of just sprung from there, right? It had a lot of success because it was different. It was hourly based. It is consultative based.
Right.
It's allowing us to have a bigger penetration in the with the client so we can help from the start and
Yeah.
understanding what they really need from an essentials place on the
Yeah.
job description and then moving it through. And our clients pay for the time. So since then, we've had just tremendous amount of success. I mean, a year ago, it was just me doing everything.
I
A
know.
year later, I have 3 recruiters and I have a VP of sales and development. So we have grown substantially.
I've
And
been watching. Yeah.
yes, and as a, I know what it is as as a CEO of a busy business, like, should I hire them? Should I not hire them? All the things that come through it. And
Right.
I, um, I feel like it is the most important piece is your people. So I that's really who I am. I am all about connecting people with the right matches so that they can create better balance in their own lives because we do affects people, like we're
Yeah.
helping people find their right match and we're helping companies grow within that place and having the right people grows their story and their mission and allows them to be in their business or actually growing their business versus doing everything for their business.
Yeah. I think the most common thing people say back to me is, Dom, I want to work on my business, not in
Right.
it. And the project manager role, which I've seen you put in place in a couple of my clients and people that I know, is one of those things because there's so many moving pieces to every project.
Right.
And I don't know everybody's numbers, but in a like a I'll just go shoot for the middle here. In a residential cabinetry company, one PM can do about 2 million in installs a year. But there's so many moving pieces. And when an owner can delegate that to the right PM and have them take over that, now they've got all this time
Right.
for the business or
Right.
golf. I don't know what they
Right.
want to do,
Or
but
spend
they've
time with
got,
their family
yeah,
or
they've got choice, do
they have
mission work.
choice. They have
Yeah.
choice. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
When
So you're
you
different than normal. We're different than what we think of as a recruiter. And you're totally different than doing it on your own. You're an
right.
expert in how to recruit, but you don't follow that typical recruiting model. You have a different, we can talk about that later. But
Yeah.
so today we're going to talk about how I found a PM, how I found a
Right.
project manager. And you and I talked about this earlier. Obviously, you and I don't share names. We're both professionals.
Right.
But the case study is actually a merged case study between California, Louisiana, and Texas.
Right.
Maybe some more, but you and I know who we're talking about. But I think we can do a case study there because these are all growing cabinet shops
Right.
or millwork shops, and they have a people problem that's really a process problem that's ultimately a time problem, and then that's a profit problem.
Right.
Other than that, it's not important at all.
No. Not important at all. No.
So let's go to the beginning. When somebody first, let's say they hear the podcast, just as an example, and they're like, I should talk to Suman. So
Right.
you get the phone call.
Right.
I don't need to know all the details, but what's generally their pain? They're like, hey, this is the situation.
So in almost all the cases that we're talking about, every single one of them were so busy. They had more business than they couldn't, they had all these beautiful shops.
Yeah.
They had the staff as far as actually being able to produce it, but they didn't have anyone to manage. They're the only ones doing it. They were the only ones interacting with clients. They were only one overseeing the estimates, checking off on them. They were the only ones in the production floor, making sure all the blueprints are being followed and all the process was being done. So what was happening is there was a delay in their production, right?
Yeah.
So here they are working 80 hours a week, working all the time, doing everything. And yet here they've invested in this beautiful shop and they've spent all this money to have the best technology on the things, and they can't get their products out fast enough. Yeah. They have this problem with, okay, we can, we create this quality pieces, but you're going to have to wait 6 months for us to even start that job.
Yeah. They just get pulled too thin, right? They get pulled too thin, and it's happening to people every day. And to a certain extent, it happens to me, but that's when I send up a flag that I'm going to need to hire somebody. But
right.
If you ask me a question today at noon, and I have to think about it a little bit, maybe do some research, but I can't do that research till tomorrow. We've just now wasted half a day.
Right.
And then I got to find a way to connect with you. Maybe I send you an email, maybe I phone you. That takes different time chunks, but it could take a day and a half, 2 days for that one thing to get resolved. Let's just say it's a change order. Well, now we're held up.
Right.
But if you have a P, in this case, we're talking about project managers. There's other positions, but
right.
We'll stick on PM. But if you've got a PM whose job is to get back to customers right away, you take that 2-day process of answering one question and you drop it down to an hour or 2.
Exactly. And also you have someone to handle things. Like, I mean, we as CEOs, we have life things, right? Life happens. I mean, it just does. Yeah. We have things that happen outside of the business that we have to deal with in our own lives. And what happens when we don't have that support, right? Like what happens in our relationships? What happens?
What relationships? Do you mean we have families?
Exactly.
We have a wife and kids at home, or husband and kids at home?
Because that was the case with one of the gentlemen, is that he had been looking for someone since COVID. He'd been looking for the right project manager since COVID. He had brought a few people in that were not very experienced and didn't really have the core values, but he just needed to get some warm bodies in. And actually what ended up happening with that, imagine this.
Yeah.
What happens when we put warm bodies in there at right matches? It causes even more chaos in the situation. So then he had to undo all that. And then when he came to us, it was a situation where he was like, I have to do something here. Like, I cannot continue down this path. It was a very, he was not in a good place. You know what I mean?
It's frustration, because it's not for lack of trying. It's
he just didn't have the time. I mean, you only have so much time, and he's doing a great job. He's getting so much business, his clients, like he can double, the amount of production he's doing, but he can't do that. He has the space to do it. He has the people to do it. He's having to bench people because he doesn't have a project manager to manage those projects.
Yeah.
So it was a mess for sure.
I think we've done a good job of painting a picture of the pain everybody listening currently has.
Yes.
But we're trying to solve it too, right? So that's the first thing. So people contact you however they contact you, because they're finally like, actually, I got to do some math here. Can we do this? It's so exciting.
You can go for the math.
Math is so, and that's my strong suit too.
Perfect. Go for it.
But I want to remind people, the reason that you would hire anybody for anything is when it's kind of like dollar cost averaging. The real economic term, I'm so dorky. I'm sorry. It's the economic term is Ricardo's law of comparative advantage. If it costs less for an installer to do it than me to do it, I should hire the installer. Right. So if I have $1 million cabinet shop, and everybody just play along for a second. So that's 1 with 6 zeros, right? And I work 2,000 hours a year, which also is a joke because Suman, people are working 60, 80, 90 hours a week now, which is
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's not even, yeah, I feel bad for them.
Yes.
But if you assume they're working 40 hours a week, it's just approximately 2,000 hours a year. Not really, but everybody knows that. We're trying to do the easy math. Anyways, your time is worth $500 an hour. Now, that doesn't mean that you charge yourself out at $500 an hour when you go do a walkthrough with a client or you're jumping in on a machine. What it means is your responsibility listening to this show as the entrepreneur running this business, as a business person who just happens to run a cabinet shop, you've got to think at the $500 an hour level. And you've got to take decisions and look at everything at that level. And if you don't, you're wasting your company's money. You're actually stealing from your company. That's why we got to hire a PM.
Yeah.
At, I don't know what the hourly rate would be, and I don't even want to say because it's
Right.
different in Tennessee than
Right.
it is in Texas than it is in another. It's just different, but you can see the math. At some point, it doesn't make sense for you to continue doing that.
It just doesn't. And what ends up happening is it leads to burnout. It leads to
Yeah,
frustration of your business. So then there's this feeling like I don't even like my business anymore. Why am I doing this? Because there is this question. And I felt this as well last year when I was doing everything before I started hiring people. I was like, this, I'm just in this business. I'm just doing everything. Like this
yeah,
isn't this. I mean, I could just go work for someone. Like, why do I even have a business? You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And
We call
I
it a
mean,
McJob. It's nothing but a job at McDonald's.
it's just
Just
a
like,
job, right?
yeah,
And then you're doing everything. And then does become like a badge for some clients, like, oh, I do everything. And you're like, but why? But why do you do everything?
well, that's a weird question, but why?
Yeah, but why are you out there measuring
Yeah,
everything yourself? And why are you doing all this stuff yourself? And why are you the only one the clients know? And why are
mm,
you the only one that can handle these? Because that's the other thing. When you don't have people, any problem that comes up within the company, guess who has to deal with that problem? There's
yeah,
no filter. Everything comes to you. You're having to make decisions on every single thing. Everything,
yeah. So
right?
again we've identified the
Yes,
pain.
the
Let's
pain.
talk about, it's okay, but let's talk about
Solution.
solving the pain. So now let's say that I'm this person, this mix of California, Louisiana, and Texas
Right.
cabinet slash mill workshop owner, and I've come to you for a PM. What am I asking you for? I want, for me, the perfect project manager is, and what do they tell you?
I mean, they all want the experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want this X amount of experience. I want this very specific experience, right? The experience piece is like the most important piece, right? I want them to come from the same type of shop. I want this, and this.
Yeah,
And then, but I only want to pay like, I don't want to pay like the money. I mean, I don't always want to pay like the
I don't
high,
want to pay market rates.
what the market rate is, right?
Yeah,
Or even more. And then the ability piece is important. And so what we work with our clients is, yes, ability is so important, but let's talk about the soft skills.
mm,
Because if we could find someone who has every bit of the ability, they could do everything, but if they don't have the right core values as a person, the
mm,
ability to be able to be trained into your process,
right.
someone who's not a reactionary based person who can handle a capacity holder. Because what you want in your people are people that can grow as you grow and scale as you grow. So if you have people who don't take accountability and who aren't team based
Yeah,
and don't have a lot of awareness, like higher EQs, those things matter because then there's limitations in the business as well. It all kind of correlates together.
yeah,
So we work so hard on establishing upfront, like, what do we really need? Let's really talk about what we really need. And then we help to construct that job description so that it's
right.
not 6 pages long. So it's concise
Yeah,
and easy to for a potential candidate to digest the information and, oh, that's what it is. Okay. Okay,
yeah,
I know how to do those things. Okay, perfect. And
yeah.
then the next piece is, okay, great, you have someone who has this ability, the interviewing process, because we use a scoring system that we score all of our candidates
Oh,
based
okay.
in these kind of soft skills. Like we look at the ability piece, it's an easy thing to translate to someone who has the ability or
Technical
not.
skills, you can
Yeah,
tell
the
me, right?
technical
Yeah.
skills you can, but do they have these other pieces? And then we take it a step further. And then we also teach our clients how to use this process as well.
Mm,
Whether they choose to or not is up to them, but we encourage them to score it from this non-biased way so that we can compare those scores. It
Yeah.
helps us to what it really helps us with, and we've noticed in the searches, specifically these searches, is that it helped us to fill in the gaps. Okay, so we thought we needed this, but after interviewing this person, and this actually is more important. And so, like, let's make those shifts in the job description, or what do we need to do with it? And then what does that conversation with candidates look like? Because that's what you don't always know what you need exactly until you start interviewing people.
You know, as you were explaining that piece of the thought process that a business owner is going through, I just reminded myself, almost everybody in this industry, and I say this with all the credit in the world, is just making it up as they go along. They've never run $1 million cabinet shop. They've never run a 2 million, a 2.5, a 3 point, whatever it does. The revenue doesn't matter, but all of us are in this uncharted territory.
Right.
And we expect ourselves to make perfect hires and
Right.
perfect decisions.
Right.
Because we've never done it before. We don't have a system. And what you were talking about is we have a system. We have a scoring method. I love that.
Yes.
Right. Just because we're trying to remove the emotion and add logic.
Yes.
And logic allows us to step back and make, what's the right decision. You still add your gut in there. Somebody could look great on paper, but be a total, I can't swear. A not nice person.
Right. Well, we follow that up with a Zoom interview. So we always Zoom every single candidate as well. And in that interview, we're looking at nonverbal. We all kind of trained on the nonverbal cues with candidates as well, which is really important because we're wanting to see the engagement, the motivation, the hunger with this position. Did they show up prepared? Did they have questions? Did they show up on time?
Yeah.
All those pieces we really look at. And then when we're doing our sourcing, I mean, we use the job boards, of course, but that's not where any of these candidates came from. They didn't come from job boards. They came from my recruiters diligently going into every single cabinet maker in the area and reaching out to every single project manager individually. That's where
wow. So you guys actually hustle.
That's where they all came from.
So you don't post and pray. I'll just use Indeed as the example.
No, we don't post and pray. We use Indeed. I mean, look, we use the job sites, of course. And sometimes we are able to have success with the job boards. It at least gives us an idea of what the market value is. Because a lot of times what ends up happening, and almost all these positions, what ended up happening was that we had to adjust the salary range. So the salary range on almost all those 3 positions had to increase a little bit. And that was okay. But we wouldn't have known that had we not interviewed a lot of people to really gauge what the market really is in your area with this type of specific experience you need.
Yeah. Why are people changing jobs then? Maybe we should get inside the mind of these PMs. What are you hearing from them? Like, why would they be even open to changing their job?
I mean, I think it's interesting because the reason they're wanting to leave is the reason that these companies are looking for people. It's the same thing. So they're overwhelmed. They don't have enough support. They are running too many projects at one time. There's no leadership. They feel confused. There's chaos within the organization. There's lack of transparency. There is issues with quality pieces that are being lacked. Because, with cabinets specifically, there's a really high quality piece.
Right.
And when you get very busy sometimes and you're trying to do everything through production and you're a custom cabinet shop, some of that integrity can get lost. So we've heard that as well. And then there's no growth. They don't feel like there's any growth. They're stagnant in their growth, but it's not the money. That's what's really interesting. All 3 candidates that we helped fill positions with, none of them took more salary, very little bumps in salary. It had nothing to do with money.
Really?
They were all passive candidates. They took a little bump, I mean, of course, but it wasn't so significant. No, it was the environment. It was the leadership.
Oh, wow.
It was the lack of accountability. It was the feeling like they didn't have opportunity for growth, and they didn't feel like they're in a thrive. And this isn't just with cabinets. This is with everyone. Yeah. People want to feel like they're in a thriving environment. They want to feel appreciated.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know the shops you're talking about. Obviously, we're not going to, they're not sharing their names, but they have dashboards in place. They track their metrics. They track their numbers. They take the business seriously. And sorry, let me back that up. It's not that they take the business seriously. They run their business proactively,
Right.
which is it, you know, what my team has shown them how to do in these
Right.
cases. One of them was already running it pretty proactively
Right.
when we met him, but we're still showing him how to run it. You know,
Right.
like how to that even that person is like, well, I think I could do better. It's just their
Exactly.
internal gearing is how can I do a little bit better,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And so
And
that's
you're
what these
right.
candidates are looking for.
Well, and I think that is a really amazing statement, what you said as well, is that the companies that have thriving, they also have a lot of automation and they're not doing every single thing. There's an automation, there's a process to
Mm-hmm.
everything, there's a
Mm-hmm.
structure to everything. Everyone knows what is next in the process. And so there's not the chaos that happens when there's not that.
Yeah. What about blame? Have they been bruised because they got blamed for projects going sideways, or and so they're like, I got to get out of
Yeah.
here because it's just a
I mean,
toxic
it's
and
just, yeah, the project managers always get blamed. And a lot of times it's not even them because they're not even doing the estimating. So the estimate was wrong from the beginning. It
mm,
wasn't estimated correctly or was inaccurate. And then they got it from that place on. And then it's a mess. They weren't qualified and then they're taking responsibility. And also they're managing too many projects. There's just too many projects and they're having to manage all the vendors and they're having to do this and they're having to do that. And then on top of that, instead of getting encouragement or appreciation for the jobs they're doing, they're just getting more, um, people are just coming at them for this project that wasn't as profitable as it was supposed to be. So there is a lot of that. It's people don't want to feel like transactions in an organization. They want to feel like they're valued. And
part of
so
a team. Yeah.
yeah. So, and they're all excellent project managers. They were all passive. They've been in their companies for a long time, but all of these, and part of it is our approach as well. Like we're reaching out to them. We're like, hey, let me tell you about something new. Let me tell you about this is what's going on. And they loved it, I mean, we don't sell people on opportunities. We're very direct and honest about what the position is.
Mm-hmm.
And we give them the opportunity to ask a lot of questions and we're able to relay that back. I mean, I think the biggest shift for us is like that what we do for clients is we make sure that process keeps going. Because sometimes what happens in hiring is we are very excited about hiring. Okay, we are good. We've got the job description, we're putting the job out
Oh
there.
no. Yeah,
We
yeah.
print out, and I heard it. We print out 200 resumes. We're like, okay, I'm going to sit here for 5 hours, and then we do it for a couple of days, and then we get busy because we're on a business. We don't have
Yeah.
time to do it. So then what we do is we alleviate all that. We're sourcing through hundreds of resumes, hundreds of profiles,
Mm-hmm.
passively, actively. We're putting on different job boards. We're trying out different groups. We're working together. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more that goes behind the scenes of finding that project manager. That was 1,000 resumes we went through, hundreds of interviews we went through, like not hundreds, but
No,
that
I know
was
what you
a
mean though.
lot.
It's those are important. So imagine for a second somebody who did apply to your company, where I'm speaking to the audience now, who did apply and they're the perfect candidate, but they didn't hear back from you for 6 days, 7 days. It kind of there's a lot of dust on that. Now they're like, well, if that's the response time of this company, is that what I want? And that's maybe not a deal breaker, but
No,
it adds up over time. And then the interview wasn't done professionally or properly. And they're like, I don't know about these guys. It sounds like where I'm at right now. It's not any better.
exactly. And that's the thing. And that's so correct because not only does it delay the interview, but like the interview, like what happens is, oh, can we switch the interview to Monday? I know we had it for Tuesday and I got stuck in a meeting or but those are people's time. And then you're
Mhm.
just showing them the same thing. But for us, the client doesn't have to worry about that because we're setting everything up. We're like in the background, like, okay, what do we need to do? All right, let's
Mm.
get and we're making sure that they're all set. Like we're making sure the candidate knows where they're going, who they're meeting with, what kind of
It's
not
almost
prepping
like you're a
them.
project manager
Yes, we
for
are a project
hiring
manager. We are
people.
we're recruiting project managers. And
Yeah.
then, and then we're following up to see if there's any type of issues or questions this candidate had, or did the client have issues or questions? And sometimes miscommunication happens in interviews. So there needs to be clarity around that. So us being this neutral person who's like, and we don't ever tell our clients to hire people because we're very fact-based. We're like, well, this is what they
Mm.
scored. This is what we do think he's a viable match. But
Right.
again, we encourage our clients to ask more probing questions, to understand who the person is. And also, they need to talk about their business. That's really important as well as the client. And we do a really good job of in the beginning asking the client, like, really, well, who are you? What makes you so unique? What sets you apart?
Yeah.
Why does someone want to work for you? And we take that description and we use that when we talk to candidates as well.
You can see me laughing or smiling because I'm thinking back to somebody who I know is listening to this episode. He's just a great businessman, but he doesn't know how to interview because he's a great cabinet maker.
Right.
And he's done a great job of transitioning his business into being an entrepreneur who runs a cabinet shop. But he doesn't know how to do interviews. So he ended up having a 2-hour interview in his lobby with somebody who walked through the door because, in his own words, he goes, I didn't know how to end it.
Right.
And he's such a nice guy that he would
Right.
never ask somebody to leave his shop,
Right.
but he was like, it was over. I'm like, we're not hiring this person.
Right.
But he didn't know how to end the interview, just didn't know how
Right.
to say thank you, goodbye.
Right.
And that might seem like second nature. I mean, you're an expert
Right.
recruiter, so you know what you're doing. For me, it would be a little easier than most, but I'm
Right.
not you. Like, I don't do it
Right.
all the time. So it sounds to me like you're training people and saying, this is how an interview goes.
Right.
This is how we prepare you for the interview. This is how we prepare
Right.
the candidate. Then the interview happens. This is the follow-up after. This is what we're
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten so much better with the process. I'm not going to say, like, when I was doing it all myself, it was probably a little bit more wobbly, the process, but now you know how it is. But now,
Just like any business owner.
just like any business owner, I mean, I couldn't give I always tell my recruiters, like, you're better, like, you're much better recruiters than I ever was. And honestly, because they're
And
so
just recruit.
focused. Yeah, they just recruit. This is what they do. That's what they're specialized in. And
Yeah.
I teach them the process, and they make the process even better. That's what happens when you have amazing people. Because when you have amazing people, they take your process that you've done, and I think we talked about this before our call. We can't see our blind spots, right? They take your process and they go, hey, how about this is what engaged employees do, because this is what I have on my staff.
Yeah.
Hey, what about this? Have we thought about putting this process in? Have we thought about putting this structure? And what could we do this? And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened, you know? And
Yeah.
that's what we provide for our clients. So we're like, we have a very systematic way. Like, not only that, every week they hear from us minimum of 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Who's that? When
the
you're
client.
working? Oh, when you're working with
the clients.
Yeah.
The recruiters reach out and give them statistics on how many people we've contacted, how many interviews we've gone through, what's going on. So there's complete transparency. So if we need to make adjustments to the job descriptions, because sometimes we need to, do we need to adjust something in the job description? Is there a company vehicle people normally get? And do we need to add that? Do we need to adjust the salary? Is the ability piece, is that really what we're looking for? Are we looking for something more like this? And, like, let's open that up. So that's what the conversations are in real time. Because what ends up happening typically is we put a job description up.
Yeah.
We hope and pray that the right person applies. Sometimes they do. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
And then that's what we choose from. Or we don't get any candidates, and then we just kind of keep wobbling around.
Yeah, I have to say I'm happiest. And we just did this here. We just hired somebody here who's like an admissions advisor, right?
Right.
My goal is to have 2 people at the end to choose from who are both strong.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
Somehow on this round, we ended up with 3.
It's amazing.
And I said to my wife, like, this is the perfect position to be in. I finally have 3 people. I'd be thrilled with any of the 3 of them. But now that I made the decision on who it was going to be that joined our team, it's total confidence. Actually, a little bit of stress on my side because now I have to make sure I onboard them right.
Well, that's another piece.
It's not, I mean, we talk about onboarding here a lot, but now let's say that employee, that new person doesn't work out. It's actually not on them.
Right.
It's on me because I need to onboard them. And there's certain, like the very first thing in onboarding, you're not going to be surprised, Suman. What are our values?
Right.
And who do we serve?
Right.
And then the 3 rules, you know, these rules from the podcast, but the 3 rules from the podcast are the same as the rules for people joining my team. We don't cuss, curse, or swear. We don't speak negatively about any person, place, or thing. Right. So, and then we're not promoting, like we're here to help.
Right.
You know, that's part of onboarding. So that's what we stand for. That's what we tell the people who join the team.
And I love that because we won't go on to onboarding. There's a whole other Gosh, onboarding is a whole
Oh, I
other.
go on about it all the time. People are
Yes,
snickering right now. They're laughing.
because it's so important.
I know.
I
Because
tell
otherwise
my
you waste
clients,
all
I'm like,
that
okay,
time.
I can find you this, but like, do you have a system? And
Yeah.
that's something our company, that's something we're like really focusing on now is we have a lot of exciting things. We're changing our branding, our website, everything. It's like all shifting, but we're
Nice.
also going to open a consulting arm to the business for people who want additional further help with the onboarding, with interviewing, like deeper dives. So, or even clients who maybe don't want to necessarily use us and have a huge HR team and want to just get better at the process and want to use our process,
Right.
so we're having put all those steps together, but there's a lot of pieces with that
So,
too,
but
because there's a need for that as well.
I hope everybody hears what you're saying, because here they are as cabinet shops or millwork shops trying to get, really good at recruiting to hire the right recruiter. And then we've got a recruiter on here who's saying, here's all the other things we're doing to get better ourselves. Like,
Right.
there's just no way, there's zero chance I'm ever going to be as good or diligent or well-rounded a recruiter as you are, because you're in it all day. You think about it all the time.
Right.
And for the rest of us, we're like, I don't know, I need to hire somebody when I need to hire them. I don't know.
You know,
You
okay, put
know,
on Indeed, throw it out there,
yeah,
ask some
like
questions,
post
print
and
out the
pray we were talking
resumes.
about, right?
Print
Yeah.
out the resumes. I mean, seriously, print out the resumes. Start till my eyes cross over, So, and the thing is for us is that when you get in all those cases and all those clients we're talking about,
Mm.
every single one of them, they all had options, right? And actually, in one of the cases, they actually didn't end up hiring our candidate, which was interesting. They ended up
Oh,
having an internal person. But what he said to me was, because we had such high quality other interviews,
yeah.
we were able to make it just, we knew
We,
this was the right person, right? So it's also like options, it's choice.
yeah. You could see what else is out there, and
Yeah.
yeah. So either way though, they had choice at the end.
And
And in the
choice.
absence of choice, we're forced to make a bad decision. And by the way, we've
Absolutely.
all seen that in our lives. A friend of ours in high school married somebody, and you're like, oh, in the absence of choice, they made a bad decision. Maybe that's just me and my group of friends. But have you ever seen that? You're looking around, you're like, why did you marry that person? What's going on? Anyways, let's not
Well,
go
I
there. We
think it's
don't we
just
don't do
that
that kind of coaching here.
when we feel like we're up against a wall when we're business owners
Mm-hmm.
or we're in high levels and we see our team not engaged, we're getting unengaged. We're not as engaged. Our people, you can see it when your people aren't as engaged, right? You can just feel it. And they're doing the job of 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
And then guess what ends up happening? Those people start looking. And then those people start looking
Yeah.
because it creates the same environment. So hiring people is the only way, hiring good people, let's be clear, hiring the right
The
people
right people.
is the only way to scale your business. There
Yeah.
is nothing else you can, I mean, you can have products, you can have services, you can have all of it. But if you don't have other people who are experts in that and helping to grow it, you will always stay small and you will stay against the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
just how it
I
works.
tend to agree. I mean, there's other things that have to be done, but
Right, of
an
course.
owner, one human can only do so much.
One human, of course, you have to have systems, but how do you have time to do that? How do you have time to
You
process it?
don't.
You
Yeah.
don't.
No, you
Because you're
don't.
like muddling through it. Like, okay, I got to get all these things done because I have this list of these things that I have to get done today. So,
Right. And then you get sucked back into the change orders on the Rubino job,
yes,
and their PM is barking at you, or their site
yes.
super is barking at you, or
The vendors are here. Did they get the insurance in? Did you get this done?
where's the samples? All
Where's
of
the
the right
samples?
now, people are already half in out of this episode. They're like, oh my God, I got to get those samples back.
No, they're already like, they're doing it right now.
Yeah. What
Like, while
white?
they're
Cloud
listening.
white? Snow white? What kind of white is that project? I can't remember. Yeah. Well, Suman, thank you very much for joining us again on this. Now, the case study, this is really just started. So we're doing, we just did a case study of how they went about bringing these people on. But in all three of these cases, it's pretty recent. They've just brought.
Yeah, within the last 3 to 6 months. Yeah, it's been pretty recent.
How long did it take them from like to find a person? So let's say they engaged you and now
Right.
they've got a person. What was their cycle?
Um, I mean, that it was a little bit longer because it was a little bit more specific. So I think 6 to 8 weeks from the start to
Yeah.
finish.
And I have to remind everybody that sounds long, but you brought them up from cold.
Right. You
Like
brought
these
up
weren't
from school.
people standing outside with a resume in hand. This was
No,
cold, not interested, never heard of these other shops. And then
no.
you had to sort of say, hey, have you ever thought about
Yeah.
change?
There was digging, lots and lots of
The
digging,
digging.
lots and lots of digging. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was a process because, we had to really, and when you're looking for passive candidates, it's a lot more time consuming than it
By
is
passive candidate, Suman, what do you mean? What's a passive candidate?
someone who's not in a job board, someone who's not actively looking. We have to actually
Oh,
go into LinkedIn, find their company, find out what their email is, find their phone number, call
not
them
easy.
up,
None of those are easy anymore.
and actually have a conversation and leave messages, send emails. And we had to do a lot.
So you
And
guys
you
know
have to
how.
go in there and do all the searches. I mean, it's a lot. And you have to go. I don't know. Recruiters, we're a whole band of, we're just a bunch of stalkers, I think. That's what we really are. Like
It's
we're
not, I always say it's not stalking if it's for work.
right. I mean, like
Yeah.
investigators. So we just investigate, like, oh, this person worked there. There's a cabinet shop. And so, I mean, and it, honestly, one of the girls on my team, who's been with me for a few months now, she has a background in woodworking. So
No
she has been
way.
helping so much with the cabinet. Yeah, because she understands it on a much different level than even I would
Right.
understand it, right? So she could really get in there on the technical part and really understand, like, technically. So that's been really huge too. So my recruiters really work together. So we have a more challenging position. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we just team up and we work together and we help each other out because
Get
that's
it
what you
solved.
do, right?
Yeah. The same as in a shop. You
Right.
get
Same
together.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Suman, incredible. Again, thank you. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. I mean, this is a case study, but it's a what do you call it? A merged case study because we're not going to share names.
right.
Although the people in California, Louisiana, and Texas that we're talking about, I know all three of them listen to the show as well. So hi.
Hello.
Hi, not saying your names, you know who
You
you
guys are
are.
all amazing. We
Yeah.
love
And
working with all
growing.
three of
And now
you.
they've got nothing but time. They're currently listening on a golf cart because they've
Absolutely.
got
They're in the
PMs.
Caribbean on their
Oh,
on their
yeah.
boat,
Why
just
not? Right.
living it up, like
Yeah.
while they're and typing their project manager, everything good? Question mark.
We know that's not entirely true, but they're
Yes,
on their way. They're on their way.
they're on their way.
Hey, Suman, if somebody wants to reach you, how do they find you in this big wide world?
I mean, my website, cherrytalentgroup.com. There's a submission form if anyone has any other, questions about our process or need some help, or if you are an incredible cabinet and your project manager, please send me your stuff too,
Stop.
because
Don't poach my audience for
oh
my
yeah, no,
audience.
sorry, don't come to me. But anybody, any clients who or any companies that really need some help or just want some advice, even if you don't want to utilize our services, that's fine too. Like I'm always open to helping
Mm.
and providing, some guidance as well. So you can go on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn,
Yeah,
as
apparently.
well.
Like you're good at it.
Yes,
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
And hey, listen, again, LinkedIn is a tool. It's a thing. And
It
there's
is.
so many, all of these like so the internet in general, but then all of these specific sites like LinkedIn, it's like a mixer board in front of a DJ. There's all these knobs and dials and tuners and things. And unless
Yeah.
you get that right, you're just not going to get the data back.
Yeah, I mean, we utilize a lot of different systems. We have like searching systems, and we have um we have a
Navigator.
we have so many different ways that we contact the people and reach out to them and connect with
Sneaky.
them. We are
Sneaky.
sneaky.
You're good at your job. That's why
We
you're
are.
back again. That's why I think this is your fourth episode with
Oh
us.
my gosh, I
I
feel so
think.
honored.
Yeah. Well, two on here and then two on Profit Tool Belt
I feel like I
podcast.
should get like a badge or something for it or something.
Maybe a hat. Got
Like a
lots of
Dom.
hats.
I know I need a Dom hat. I do.
Well, and then it was a concrete company that you and I originally met
Right.
through. And then I
Right.
spoke to him and he ended up being a guest, and that was
Right.
great. And so
Yeah,
yeah, we just keep running across each other, which is nice. I
it
love
is
that.
nice.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, Suman. Well, thanks for joining us. Who knows? You might be back. You just never know. If history is any evidence.
Or maybe you'll have a third podcast. Who knows? Maybe
Oh
you'll
God,
start
no.
another.
No, no, no. Two's enough. Two's
Come
enough.
on. I think
Yeah.
everyone wants Dom to have another podcast, the third one. Come
No,
on.
no. All right. Thanks, Suman. Have a great day. We'll talk to you
Bye.
soon. Bye. Well. What did you learn from Suman? And what did you learn from that case study about how I found a project manager? You notice that Suman and I very quickly moved up the food chain and started talking about the business of business. Maybe not as many of the technical little things that you wanted, but we talked about the strategy, the implementation, some of the key things that had to be put in place, some of the challenges, some of the cautions, right? So thank you, Suman, for that. And you guys know how to get in touch with her. Right now, we're going to move to simplifying and solving a common problem. So it's another case study. It's a very quick case study. One of you in the audience asked me for one of the professional development tool downloads, and then crazy, sent me back their work as if it was homework. Now, congratulations to you. This gentleman's initials are KC. So I might just call you Casey. KC. Great job, man. I appreciate it. I love it when somebody takes it to that level. So what you didn't do, Casey, is go to a coffee shop and take a picture and send me the picture so I can send you $5. But you did great. You filled in this document. And because I'm not using his name or his location or even his country, I'm going to share the answers that he put in the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner. At the time of this recording, it's September. By the time you listen to it, it might be October, and then November's right around the corner. December's right there. And guess what's breathing down our necks? 2024. 2025, sorry, 2024 is done. So it's going to be New Year's, and it's going to be January before you know it. And sometime in January, maybe February, I'm going to do the thing that you expect me to do. Well, let's have a conference call. Let's talk about planning for the best 2025 ever. Well, some of you, like KC, have already done it. When you've got this professional development tool, it's called the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner. Some of you have asked for it before. Many of you have downloaded it. Many of you have downloaded it, but never done anything with it. Many of you haven't had a chance to ask for it yet, or this might be the first time you've heard about it. So I'm here to hold you accountable. You have one of two jobs. The first job is to get the document. If you don't have the document, get the document, okay? If you have the document, your next job is to fill it in. And I'm asking you, or I'm directing you as your business coach, print it off, go to a coffee shop and fill it in. It's that simple. And you guys have heard me say this before, and I'm serious. I'd actually like to spend more money, but I will pay you to do your homework. I'll pay you $5 if you just send a selfie of you doing the work, coffee, pen in hand. Just take a selfie and send it off to me. Brian did it. Al did it. Marty did it. Who else has done this? We've got a whole bunch. Brian's from Australia. Hey, Brian. If you remember his picture, he's either holding a very, very tiny cup of coffee in his hand, or this guy's an absolute massive beast. He's got huge hands. I'm not sure, one of the two. Jonathan did it. I'm just trying to do this by memory, but I would have expected that this year I would have spent about $1,000, $5 at a time, and I haven't. I've maybe spent less than $5 at a time. It's kind of confusing to me, but we'll let that sit as it may. Just so you know, I've got a budget set aside for sending out $5 gift cards. But the reason I want to do that is I want to take every single obstacle out of the way for your learning. Really, my intent is pure. I just want what's best for you. It's the same for me. It's the same for all the coaches on my team, Lee, Ryan, Jake. It's the same for Helen, for Maria, for Vlad, for Ian, for Rio, everybody on the team. All we want to do is what's best for you. That's it. And so you have to do the next part. Anyways, the professional development tool is called the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner. And right in the middle of the document, it's 3 or 4 pages, there is the worksheet. And so KC sent me the worksheet. So I want you to imagine in front of you is a grid. It's a very simple grid. It's 3 columns by 3 rows. But there's some important questions that feed into the answers. But I'm going to share some of the answers with you. But in your mind, I want you to imagine that there's a row going left to right that says personal. Underneath that is a row that says family. And underneath that is a row that says business, right? The first column is healthy. Then to the right of that is wealthy. And then to the right of that is wise. So the challenge that I put in front of you is to do your own quick strategic plan. Think about your company. Think about it like an entrepreneur. Think about it like Rockefeller. Think about it like Gates, right? Think about it like Jobs. Think about it like Musk. Think about it like John Bon Jovi, who was one of the greatest unsung businessmen in the world. Think about it. What does it mean for you to be healthy, wealthy, and wise against the question of personal, family, and business? And so KC said this. Here's his personal, healthy goal. Let me read this. I have to read it carefully because it's handwritten. So healthy personally means he's able to walk downstairs. So there's something physical going on. He wants to be able to walk distances. I'm sorry, keep up with my son in soccer. And I want to be stronger with less muscle fatigue. So that's great. So that's him personally against his definition of healthy. Let's go to personally and wise. So I'm going to jump a column there. What does it mean for him to be personally strong and wise? Here's what he answered. I want to answer questions on facts, not opinions. I want to look at problems without bias. That really is a wisdom overlay. It's actually Stoic thought and Stoic philosophy right there. Casey, you may not know this, but pretty well done on your part. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's go to family wealthy. What does it mean for KC for his family to be wealthy? Remember, there's 3 columns and 3 rows here. So family happens to be the middle row and wealthy happens to be the middle column. So this would be right in the middle of the tic-tac-toe if this was tic-tac-toe, right? So visualize that. So he's filled in the box here. It's just with a pen, right? He clearly did this at his desk or at a coffee shop. So for his family to be wealthy, KC says, I want to say no less because of money. Wow. I heard a definition once from somebody of what it meant for them to be a wealthy family would be to go to any restaurant they wanted and order without looking at the price on the menu. What a nice way to think about things. And what a nice way to think about directing your wealth is to take your family for dinner. It's a pretty simple and honorable way of looking at things to say, I just want to order whatever we want from the menu without thinking about money. Anyways, he's got a second thing written in there, able to travel when and wherever. Able to travel, just able to travel wherever they want. So to him, that's what family wealth means. Family wealth means that. Interesting. If you haven't had a chance to do this particular professional development tool, it really is a professional development tool. It's time for you to work on yourself, work on the machine, and just download this or get it from me, right? Just send me a text message. Let's do one more. What does it mean to KC for him to be business healthy? I'll do business healthy and business wealthy. So business healthy is run the business with minimal input from me, not stressed about taxes, and have great employees. Have great. No, it says take care of employees. KC, your writing is awesome. You should be a doctor, buddy. Or maybe I should be a better reader. That's maybe a better way to answer that. So that's business healthy. So he wants to, take better care of his employees, not worry about stress, about taxes, and he wants the business to run without a ton of input from him. This actually goes back to the conversation we just had with Suman right now. Having people around you who can run their jobs to allow you to do your job a little bit better. So that's pretty cool. Thank you, Casey. So business, what did I say? Business wealthy was going to be the one we'll finish on. So for him to feel like he has a wealthy business, I want to give bonuses when deserved, purchase tools when needed, pay for education. And he wants to donate and volunteer. Again, I'll tell you what, the people that listen to the show are some of the nicest, big-hearted, go-giver, servant leadership type people in the world. Right there under business and wealth, he wants to give back. So here's a guy who in one column says, I want to make enough money to take my family, do whatever my family wants, less no because of money. And then in another column, he wants to make enough to help other people that aren't even his family. Talk about an honorable man who could stand up proud and tall. I love seeing these things because it tells me more about the fantastic people we have listening and the true intent of it. We're cabinet makers. What the heck? How did we get so lucky to be in a group of people who think the same, right? And we should honor that. So Casey, thank you. What a great tool. I suppose you sent that to me so I could hold you accountable. So here it is. That's accountability, buddy. I just read out your answers. Dun, dun, dun. Folks, I hope you got a lot of value from that. Of course, those are KC's answers? What are your answers to those same things? And maybe if you got a business partner or a spouse involved in the business, or maybe you brought in your son or your daughter or your son-in-law, why don't you do this exercise together? It's called the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner. Send me a text message and just say you want it, and then we'll send it off to you, right? The other thing that, so thank you for that, Casey. I appreciate you sending it in. And I hope you take it, by the way, as a compliment that I chose to share this, because I get, lots of emails and texts and things. And I thought this one was really cool and well done. Hey, the other thing, thinking about Suman and what she shared with us today about hiring a project manager, I thought that the most appropriate HR related versus entrepreneur related, the most appropriate HR related professional development tool would be the onboarding SOP and job description. So if you currently don't have an onboarding SOP, grab one from me so that you have a model to follow. You can give that to your assistant. You can use it yourself, however you like. It's a tool to get you started, right? I want to cheat codes. I want you to have as much as you need to get yourself started quick. So just ask for the onboarding SOP and job description. What that's going to do is allow you to, let's say with Suman or on your own, you've found the right person. Well, don't waste all that effort by not onboarding them right. It'd be like building beautiful kitchen cabinets and leaving them out in the rain. Now you look at it and you're like, well, they were awesome. They were fantastic. And then we didn't take care of them. We left them out in the rain. What if you hired great people and didn't take care of them? It's the same thing, right? So use the onboarding SOP and job description. You'll be able to customize it to your company, to your values, to your vision, to your specific niche or niche, as you might call it. But either way, do that. At least have this thing on your hard drive so that when it overcomes you that you want to do this, you've got it. You don't say, where was I? Where did I have that? I thought I asked for it. Where is it? What's the file name? Just grab it from me. We'll send it over by email, and then you'll have it as a reference. Send me a text anytime to ask for these things. You guys know my cell phone number. It's 315-903-7853, and just ask for what you want, and the world will provide. Folks, thank you very much for listening to the podcast. One day, you and I get to have a cup of coffee, maybe a glass of wine across the table from each other. And that is actually why I do this show, because I can't wait to share a drink with you. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.